Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our fifth webinar in Tourism Nova Scotia's webinar series. So today we are offering SEO, why search engine optimization is more important than ever. So really excited that you could be here today. And we're just going to get started now. So travel restrictions have had significant impacts on businesses, and we know this. And this webinar series will offer practical advice and some information to help steer your business through the COVID-19 crisis and prepare you to welcome visitors when the time is right. So we have a lot of guests on today. We've partnered with Digital Nova Scotia on this webinar. So we have some friends from Digital Nova Scotia here. And so some people may not be familiar with Tourism Nova Scotia. So we are the marketing organization for the province of Nova Scotia. We market Nova Scotia as a vacation destination, and we help lead initiatives to help grow the tourism industry. So thank you for joining us. So just a little bit of housekeeping today. Any questions you have, just put it in the Q&A at the bottom. We'll make sure we answer those. We ask that you do keep them on topic, of course. And if there's anything outside of the topic, we'd be more than glad to help you answer those. So all of our contact info is there at the end. We'll be able to help you out there. Also, links and resources will be shared within 24 hours by email, as well as the webinar. And we'll also send you a Survey Monkey just to ask how the webinar was, you thought it was effective, and just let us know how it was, because we really want these to be effective and to help industry. So as well, throughout the presentation, Michael may give some tips or talk about different websites, and don't be worried that you didn't get to write it down. We'll share a link afterwards, and again, the recording will be there as well. We have Robert Haldane and Hannah Edgar on from Digital Nova Scotia. So of course, love to have our friends and our partners on that are helping us put this on. So today we have Michael MacMillan of MacMillan Search. Michael MacMillan Search consults with companies on SEO strategies, empowering them to achieve their goals in-house through clear communication. 10 plus years in the field. Michael said since 2009 he has had SEO in his job title, ranging from in-house to leading an agency's SEO team. And as a consultant, Michael empowers teams to consider organic search in all their strategies. So we're really excited to have Michael here today. And Michael's going to I'll give you a little brief overview of what Michael will touch on today. Keeping clients informed and up to date using homepage metadata and Google My Business. Determining what types of keywords are driving people to your website and what is currently Google Search Console is helping with that. And again, Michael will be able to provide much better detail with that. So looking forward to Michael. He's going to talk about scheduling your content based on historical trends using Google Trends. But he's also going to talk about the trends and the impact post-COVID and pre-COVID. And as well, Michael had asked that hopefully we could have people sign up for Google My Business to be set up for today. So hopefully that happened in Google Analytics. Either way, really excited to have Michael here today. Michael's going to take over my screen now. And again, any questions throughout the presentation, just send them out through the Q&A or through the chat, whatever you feel comfortable with, and we'll make sure we get to them. So Michael, welcome. You are muted currently, but just unmute yourself and take over the screen. We're looking forward to hearing what you have to say today.
All right, whoop, click the button. Of course I did. Excuse me for just 1 minute. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Yeah, so today we're going to talk a little bit SEO. And Nick gave you a little bit of overview for my company. We're called MacMillan Search. We consult with companies with underperforming SEO strategies, empowering them to achieve their goals in-house through clear communication. So what is SEO? And it's not a miracle cure like the image is showing. It's basically strategies to improve your organic visibility in search results and driving that traffic to your site. Organic search is roughly about half of what you're probably receiving from your website. It's really important to make yourself visible. People will go to the internet when they find out about your company outside of the internet. The first thing they're going to do is look you up. And controlling what people see and how they see it is really strong. So why should you focus on SEO? Like I said, it's about half of the traffic that's coming into your site. The other channels being social media, as well as paid traffic, social ads at the top. Other things can be email newsletters, but generally speaking, roughly about half your traffic is going to come from people searching for you or topics related to what you're selling. So today we're going to focus on using the search results to keep your clients informed and discovering what keywords drive traffic and how to optimize for that and improve your position and your visibility, and also supporting your content calendar with historic trends. I know you guys had a social media webinar, and I understand that there was a lot of talk about content calendars and how to drive those. What I'd like to do is help you inform that information with an SEO lens to just kind of support that type of information. So using search results to keep clients informed. If anybody's done a search for themselves, branded search for their name, you'll see your information comes up at the top of results. It should come up at the top of results. If not, you might have a bit of an issue, or there might be things that are competing. You might have to re-explore your name. But the clearest way to control this, so Picture Perfect Tours, thank you, Jordy, for volunteering. He's going to be my guinea pig sample for all this. We've done a search for Picture Perfect Tours, and they're the first thing to come up. You'll notice in a branded search result, branded being your brand name, you should be at the top of the results. Maybe you might have your social media accounts at the very top. If they are, then that's a different issue, but it should be mostly related to you. So for Picture Perfect Tours, he's got himself right up there at the top, the homepage. You see on the right-hand side, that's the knowledge panel. That's populated from Google My Business information, which I believe Allison Knott went over if anybody was part of that presentation. I know the video is available. If you haven't watched that one, I highly recommend it. It's a great primer for what we're going to talk about. And then below that, we're seeing other things that are associated. So we're seeing the novascotia.com link, the TripAdvisor, lots of great reviews on TripAdvisor, the Facebook, so your social media, TripAdvisor, another TripAdvisor page as well. And what we're focusing on here, what we like to talk about is how do you control this information that's showing up in those search results. So you see right under the search result, the first result, the blue part is the right below the company domain is the title. And this can be defined. Google will use that defined title to determine what they want to present. Now you're up to the whims of Google in this case. So what you defined may not come up, but generally speaking, that can be controlled or at least influenced by updating the title.
Michael, quick question, just on that slide. Somebody had just said, I just wanted to capture it. You mentioned a video that was really great to watch, and they just missed where it was on the page.
Oh, it's not on this page. Sorry, I was talking about Allison Knott's webinar from, I think it was a week ago.
Okay.
Through you folks, and I thought it was a great primer. I listened to it myself. I'm a big fan of Allison's.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
It's a great way to get yourself primed up for this information. So afterwards, if you're feeling this is a little overwhelming, I highly recommend going back, listening to Allison's one, and then follow up with listening to the recording of this one.
Perfect.
All right. So yeah, we were talking about the homepage title. So that would be that blue part right below the branded search. And things to consider when you're exploring writing your homepage title is it is a ranking direct influencer. So if you have a keyword in there, that can be really powerful. In my experience, though, with a homepage, generally the branded term, so your company name is what's going to be put in there. So if you fill it up with a pile of keywords that you're trying to rank for, you're probably, for branded searches, going to not get that information in the title. So again, yeah, it's mostly driven by branded search. Search engines look for those keywords, and the closer to the front equals better. So when you're outside of the homepage and you're optimizing the title, and you say you have a direct service offering or some sort of event coming up, you want to have the keywords as close to the front as possible because it just adds an additional weight to it as well. There is limited space, and take a review of your title to find out if you're using home. It's kind of redundant to use the term home. The homepage is your homepage. That's real estate that you want to take advantage of. So I would suggest getting rid of the term home if you're using it. And then the structure we suggest is important detail. So what you're selling, why you're important, why people should click to you, and then using a pipe and then go to brand, then put in your brand name. 90% of the time, Google will swap that out and put the brand name first and then the important detail next, specifically for branded queries. But by putting the important detail, so that's going to be that keyword rich explanation of what your company does, it adds that additional weight, even though Google's going to swap it out. And the homepage meta description, so I'll jump back here into these search results, right below that title there, is the actual defined, I believe, that might not be the defined one, but the meta description is that content right below there. And the meta description here it's your ad copy. So the things you want to consider is it's not a direct ranking influencer. So if you plop it full of keywords, Google's not, and I'm using Google, and I mean most search engines, but Google's about 90% of the market. So I'll just keep using Google as the example there. But if you have a keyword in your meta description, it's not going to trigger the algorithm to rank you for that. But what it will do is in a search result, if you're doing a query, the query they've done, if there's a variant of that keyword in there, it will end up being bolded. And that bolding draws the eye and increases click-through rate, which Google uses as an influencer for the algorithm as well. So it's an indirect influencer. And we suggest when you're writing meta descriptions, you make it readable and compelling. You want to draw people in. It's nice to have keywords or variants of those keywords in there as well, just so you can get that bolding and draw attention to it. But it's not absolutely necessary to have the exact keyword. And you want to write it like you're writing any sort of ad copy. You want to entice people to come in and enjoy your site, learn more about your product, and hopefully either join your newsletter or book a service offering or a product. So when you're crafting the homepage results, things I like to consider is the content you defined. Is it what you have defined? Has it been truncated? And would you click on it? It's just good questions to ask yourself as you're going through this. So we're going to jump right in. I'm going to do a little live example. And like I said, Picture Perfect Tours was very nice to allow us to use them as a guinea pig. So we're going to run their website through a couple searches here. So here's the actual search results. Now I have a tool turned on here that I can talk about later, but if anybody, there'll be links for this. It's called Keyword Surfer. It just gives you an idea of what kind of search volume is around terms. It's currently set to the US because I know a lot of us in the tourism space focus on the American market to bring in that money, but it can be switched to Canada as well. So for, we've searched the branded term. They show up first, which is great. But what we really want to be curious about is what kind of metadata are they using? So another tool I like to use is called SERPSIM, and there's a handful of other ones that you can use for this. This one I found has been pretty good, but most of them are pretty decent. And what this does is gives you an idea of what your search results would look like in a perfect world. So you plop in your URL there, you fetch it, and then we get your information. So you'll see here, Jordy's got quite a defined title here that's not getting pulled into the search results. So if I was to go back to these search results and compare that, the branded term is what's showing up, which makes sense because it's a branded query. So Google's ignoring this content in here. So if I was going to recraft this, I would change this around. So what I was saying from a structure, I would go with top tour photo in Canada, maybe Nova Scotia, because it is specific to Nova Scotia. Photo tours. And then I would do a pipe. And we go Picture Perfect Tours. Ignore the case sensitivity there. And you'll see it's automatically updating it down here. So this is giving you kind of an idea of what it's going to look like when Google or when a search engine indexes this information. Now, it's highly likely that what's going to happen is when you've updated this information, they're going to focus on the branded name. But then you can include afterwards this type of information. This is what will happen. This is realistically what the search engines will make it look like. Actually, they favor this, but I always recommend the pipe. The pipe is a good separator. It's also, out of all the separators you can use from a dash and whatnot, Google considers the title, it's based on a pixel length. It's not character length. People use character length to kind of describe things because it's a little bit easier to digest and process, and a little bit easier to measure. But with a pipe, it's the smallest of them all, and it gives you more real estate to work with. So right here, we're seeing no truncation there at all. As far as it looks like stay in Nova Scotia, I've noticed there's double pipes in here. I would avoid that. It just kind of it's adding an extra space that you can take advantage of. And then I would rewrite this meta description specifically to be a little bit more compelling. Nick, are there any questions about that part before I move on to Google My Business?
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great.
Perfect. Okay. Does anybody have any questions around anything so far? I just learned what a pipe was, so that's cool. Does anybody have any questions? Just looking here. The only question so far was the video one. So just, oh, we got a question coming in. Okay, so if you have a question, just type it in. I'll just give it another minute. So that's really interesting, actually. This is a really helpful tool. What does SERP stand for? Oh,
excuse me. I should have done a little glossary at the beginning. SERP is your search engine result page.
Perfect.
So that's like when you do a search, what the page looks like.
Okay. Oh, here we got the questions coming in now. So where do I find the pipe? Oh, that's a pretty easy one, Michael.
Oh, the pipe is right below the delete key when you're typing. It's I think it's shift, and it's right next to one of the slashes.
Perfect. And okay, the pipe. The second one. Is it free to change these results on SERPism, or does it cost money?
So SERPism is a simulator. You'll have to change it's free to use. They've got some ads. That's how they build their money. But what it's just doing is giving you an idea what it'll look like before you update it on your site. So once you've changed it on here, then you're happy with what you have, then you want to update it on your website.
Okay. That's all the questions for now, Michael. So
perfect. Let's jump back in then. So back into those branded search results. Next, we're going to, and one other thing I like to bring about title and description is this is a great opportunity for you to highlight key information. So if you've got your branded name in there and your name's not super long and you've got some room to work with, let's say you're let's say you offer free delivery. If you're going to offer that, then enter it into your title if you've got that space to work with, because that's going to draw people. If you're competing with other people and you sell a product and you've got delivery or there's ways for people to connect with you even during COVID, you can highlight that in the title. It might take a little while for Google to pull it in, depending on how often they crawl your site, but that's a great opportunity. As well with the meta description, since it's just your ad copy, if there's anything new, anything drastic, anything that's changed, I know for Picture Perfect Tours, I see a great opportunity there. I think tours are resuming in June or July, if I'm not mistaken. Highlight that information in your meta description because it's going to show up in the search results and it's going to let people know that you're still active, you're still doing things. So Google My Business, so that's that other part here. Right on the right-hand side, you see it says temporarily closed. Definitely recommend setting that up. You don't want to close your account with Google My Business. Be wary of that. It's hard to get it back in. And right now, they're on, the team at Google My Business is on reduced hours, and they're just really prioritizing more new businesses that are coming up, but businesses that are more essential. They're not putting that priority into other things. So if something goes wrong with your listing and you get delisted, it can take a while to get it back until we're kind of through all these shelter at home situations. The top opportunities that we see with Google My Business is keep it up to date. Mark yourself temporarily closed. Only if you're actually 100% closed. If you're open, modify your hours. Review your hours, your service disclaimer. Edit your business description. So what is different about how you're operating during the COVID restrictions? It's similar to your meta description. You think you have about 750 characters work with there, and you've got a lot of opportunity to highlight things about your business. And add a COVID-19 post to your profile. And I highly recommend using posts. You can't see it here, but right below reviews is a section called posts, and you can treat it like social media. If you're adding things to your Facebook, to your Twitter account, At the same time, go on Google My Business and add this as a post. So you can highlight key information in the search results. It's this great space that Google gives for you to take advantage of. So before we jump into determining keywords, does anybody have any questions about Google My Business?
So we'll just wait. If anybody has any questions, just fire them off to Michael. But I thought the Google My Business post is really a great opportunity for people to keep people up to date on what they're doing, especially during this time, because I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, any service offerings you have, I highly recommend popping them into posts. Anything that's changing, once you have a new date, this is your opportunity to post that information and get it right in the search results. And there's not this.
Yeah.
What's that? You're gonna say?
Oh no, I was talking to a business the other day, and they were saying they were selling stuff online. And I was like, oh, I didn't know, but those are the kind of opportunities that people could let people know about their COVID update of what their available offerings are. So we have 5 questions coming through, Michael.
Okay.
All right.
Sure.
So we have somebody said, okay, where do you find the posts in Google My Business?
Okay, that's you should see update a post or add a post. It's I believe on the left-hand side when you log into your Google My Business account.
Okay. So another person said, show us how to share a post. Similar idea. I tried adding details to Google My Business, and it said that it is not available to our business because we are a B&B.
Okay, yeah, I think we had this issue. I dealt with a lot of hotels in the past. Sometimes they can't, some businesses won't allow you to have the details. It's been abused in the past, and accommodation seems to be one of those. So that's something to consider. If you can't do it there, then you can do it in your meta description though, which is that part of the homepage, the background information that will show up in the search results.
Okay, so question, is there a Bing equivalent to Google My Business? And in your opinion, is it relevant, worth bothering with?
Oh, there is. It's called Bing Places. Bing is still important for a bit of an older demographic because it's the default search engine for a PC computer install that's using Internet Explorer. Right. And the awesome thing about Bing right now is you can sync it to your Google My Business. So look up Bing Places, and they'll give you the option if you already have Google My Business set up. So then you'll be set to go. Okay.
And I must say that we normally just encourage people to go right to Google My Business. So that is it a lot of work to set that up, or is it pretty simple?
It's pretty straightforward once you get it synced. And then I would just confirm it in a couple of days, make sure the information is correct. And it's got pretty much all the same details. They tried to keep it independent, but with time, they couldn't deal with the behemoth that is Google.
Right. So a follow-up to an earlier question is the B&B, and they wanted to know where they would go to change the meta description on their website.
If they're using WordPress, it should be an option in your CMS. You'll be able to update it from the home page. Like if in WordPress, you would go to like, what is your front page? Click on that, and then there should be information in there. If you don't see the information, I highly recommend Yoast as a WordPress plugin. I can't really support every CMS on this chat, but most CMSs will have a place to update that. WordPress seems to be a lot of where people are looking for it. I know Squarespace has that built in. If they're not seeing that information, Yoast is a great tool. It can get a little obsessive because you can define a keyword, and then you're looking to get green lights for how you optimize your page. I wouldn't get hung up on that, but it's a great guide to kind of get you working.
Okay, so that's great. And I mean, I know we're not going to be able to delve into all the questions, but at least we can give people some direction. So we have how to find Google My Business on my laptop. I find it easy on my phone, but not on my laptop.
If you search, if we search Google My Business, it should come up and you just log in. Right here, drive customer engagement on Google, and then you just sign in with the Google account you have associated with it.
Okay, that's perfect.
Oh, great. You got Piece by Chocolate up there. That's awesome.
Oh, that's nice. So one follow-up to the last one, and that was they use GoDaddy. So that was the question of how they update their metadata.
You'd have to reach out to GoDaddy, or I would do a quick search. GoDaddy update meta description should give you some sort of support. I would go through the GoDaddy support pages, though, because they'll keep those up to date. And if not, you might get somebody's information that could be from an old GoDaddy, from their information about GoDaddy a few years back, and that might not be 100% up to date.
Thanks, Michael. And I mean, even just the fact that people know that they need to go and update their metadata through GoDaddy, they wouldn't have known that before this. So that's a great tip. Somebody's still having trouble finding pipe on the keyboard. So this is a hot topic.
Oh man, okay. If you go directly, I'm looking at a Mac keyboard. It's directly below delete, the key between delete and return. Yep. And you have to hold down shift.
Or between backspace and enter on not a Mac,
right,
maybe.
Yeah. Sorry, yes, thank you for the translation.
No worries. All right, so I think that's covered. Now, somebody said, can they post photos? I post lots of photos and content. Can they post that in their Google post?
They can. You're not going to, I would post your photos in your photos section, and Google My Business has a great way of segmenting, like if these are interior shots, if these are product shots, if this is your team shots. But for a post, I highly recommend you add a photo, but think of it as social media. You're using it to draw the eye more and to give some context to get them to read the content a little bit further.
Perfect. This question is, where should you put your location in the site title?
The location, I would do it as secondary information, go with your branded, unless you're specifically going for something like we were looking at photography tours, Nova Scotia. I'd put that at the front, but make sure your branded name is in there, and Google will swap those out. So you'll get the name first. So when you're considering your geographical location, you want to look at it from what keywords you want to rank for. So you wouldn't put just Nova Scotia in there. You put what you are plus Nova Scotia. You don't want to rank for Nova Scotia, but like using our example, you want to rank for photography tours in Nova Scotia. So photography tours in Nova Scotia, pipe, brand name. And then Google will swap those out more than likely, and then you should be good to go.
Perfect. That was all we had so far. So again, if you guys have questions, type them in throughout. And when Michael seems to be kind of stopping throughout and asking who has any questions, just send them our way, super casual. So just if, there's no question that, that Michael can't answer. I'm just joking, Michael, but he'll be able to help you out for sure.
Now they're going to test me, Nick. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So now we're going to just determine like what keywords drive your traffic and how to optimize. Like I was saying earlier, your homepage is driving a lot of that branded traffic. And if you're going to if you want to rank for something that's secondary or something that's supporting to what your main brand is, we highly recommend you create sub pages, because you don't have to focus on your brand there as much. You want your brand to be secondary there and your service offering primary. So when you're discovering keywords, a great technique I like to use is Google Search Console. And this is free. You just have to sign up. You have to authorize it much like you would your analytics account. But it's great because you can determine what pages are driving traffic. You can determine what keywords are driving or drove that traffic. And you can also look for keywords in striking distance. And I got to save you guys from asking me what striking distance, because I know that's not a term everyone hears. But striking distance is basically the keywords in the 4th to 12th position. So those first 3 positions are really high converters. And you're looking at the search engine result page, the SERP there. Those top 3, they're going to be top of mind. On a mobile device, it might be only the first one because you've got a limited real estate to deal with. But if there's keywords are in that position, that's basically the middle of the first page down to onto the second page. And the reason why we focus on these is all the signals are already there for the search engine. You've done everything right to get up there. It's just now you have, now it's not a competition for authority, and authority is usually built with outreach and backlinks. And this is a great tactic. And for bigger companies, I highly recommend having some of your budget dedicated to outreach and community management, but it does take time, effort, and can cost a lot of money. And it may not be that there's actually a cost, but the amount of time just equals that cost. And when you're in this striking distance, it becomes a battle for attention. So this is CTR, which is click-through rate. So it's the amount of people that are clicking through your search result, and the dwell time. And that is measured in analytics from bounce rate. Now this isn't, don't confuse the two, because dwell time is basically, Google won't measure from search result to site and what you do on the site. That kind of breaches a whole pile of security concerns. But what they can measure is you going from clicking through to a result and then how much time you spend before you come back. If you jump back really quickly and you go to another result, they're gonna like ask a few questions. Maybe they're not getting what they want. Maybe there's another page on here that could serve the user's intent a little bit better. So how do you optimize for this? You got to ask yourself, what do the top of the SERPs looks like? And search engine result page again. Is the data shown on the search results the data you defined? So this comes back to that title and description. You can use that SERP sim tool we were talking about. And is your information truncated? So it's not gonna work against you if you're truncated. And truncated means it's just you get that ... because the space that Google's provided you, you've provided more information than they have the space to provide the information that you define. So if you're truncated, it might not serve your purposes. If a key subject matter is not showing up, then you want to rework this because you want that information in front of people's eyes. The other thing you want to consider is the other thing I'd like to mention about truncation. When you have a meta description, if you get truncated in there, it may not be a bad thing, especially if it leaves people, that ... leaves people wanting to learn more likely to click through. If your description's almost too good that you provide the answer that they're looking for in the search results, you end up with the 0-click result, which is great for brand awareness. People know that you're doing things, but it's not leading to traffic to your site, and then you've got your conversion metrics on there. How can you create better content than the top results? This takes a little bit more labor intensive, but this is a great opportunity to dig into what are the top results? What kind of information are they providing? How can you provide better information? And consider that when you're creating your content or reworking your content. And what other relevant questions can you answer? There's a little spot in a search result called the people also asks. And it basically Google's given you the questions people are asking when they search these high-level topics. So if you're looking up photography tours, then there's a chance that there's answers directly below that in this people also ask section. It tends to be a little bit lower on the search result page. And if you can answer these questions, then you're sending a relevancy and signal to Google as well. And you're giving yourself a secondary place to rank. And generally what I like to do when I'm looking at these questions is I run them through to find out if there's any search volume around that. And we'll go through that a little bit later. But if there is search volume for this, I would suggest creating new content for that, especially if it's not relevant to what you're writing about in the main topic page. And if it has no search volume, then you want to try to answer that on the page that's already performing well and mark it up with a heading. And you want to follow a heading structure where the top subject matter is the first heading, H1, and then your secondary headings are H2, and then subheadings of that, it cascades down from there. When you're wanting to look for new content ideas, things I would highly I'd like you to consider is what questions have been asked and have monthly searching. Just like I said there, we'll go through a few examples here in a minute. And you can use this tool, Keyword Surfer, to determine volume. We'll send you guys a link to that. It's free as well. It's a Chrome extension if you're using Chrome. And tourism, it's going to be back. We're not going to be stuck like this forever. And I myself, not going to be able to travel out of province, I think, for the summer. I'm starting to explore to see what I can do once we get a little bit more restrictions lifted around the area. Where can I go? What can I do locally? How can I support all these people that are having some issues right now? And think about what is your new success metric. Maybe it's not conversions. Maybe you're just trying to build a pile of authority and a pipe of people that are coming in that could convert next summer. So it becomes a bit of a longer game, but it's something to consider. Don't get upset that you're not converting as much because there could be secondary things that you can work with. So before I jump into that, let's go through Picture Perfect's Google Search Console, and I'll show you how to pull out some striking distance keywords. Bear with me for 1 minute here.
Just a reminder to everybody on the call that anytime throughout the webinar you have a question, just type it in the Q&A at the bottom, and we'll get to it at an appropriate time. Thank you so much.
So we're in the Search Console right here for Picture Perfect Tours. And what I'm really curious about, when you come in here by default, or just click back performance, you're going to see clicks and impressions. Clicks are how many times. Now, there's limited data on this because we just set it up. With time, it will backfill a little bit. So you will have some more historic data. If you don't have this set up, I highly recommend setting it up as soon as possible so you get as much information as you can. Total impressions is how many times you've shown up in the search results and people's eyeballs have actually gone on it. Sometimes you'll see that you're like in 50th position, which is like the 5th page, and but you're getting impressions. So people are actually more involved in searching because they're going all the way to the 5th page and seeing your site. Average click-through rate is the amount of times people see you and then they click to you. An average position is roughly the average position. Now this is the whole site, so this looks a little bit scary. You're at 39th position, that's 4th page. Like, is that really a converting spot? Well, that's an average of all of them. So if you have things on like that 10th page, it's going to affect this. It generally goes up to the first 10 pages. But what I like to do when I'm digging into this is start looking for what ones are sitting in striking distance. So what I want to do here, turn off clicks. I'm going to keep on impressions, and I'm going to look at average position. And when I scroll down here, you'll see we got position 1 for Sable Island Tours 2020. Awesome. That's great. Hold that spot. If you click on this now, you can go in and see which page is ranking for that. So your tours, Sable Island, that's exactly what you want to do. Now, with that in mind, I wouldn't get too concerned about trying to optimize for this because we're already performing well for it. But what I would consider is if you can add 2020 to your title, because that's when you're offering them, then that's a great opportunity. And keep an eye on this because you want to keep that first position. Now, there's not a whole lot of impressions on this. So impressions could be how many monthly searches there are as well, especially when these top positions. When we sort by position as well, and looking through here, we'll see. Now, again, it's also limited data here. So with a couple weeks of data, you're going to get a lot more. But we're looking at the striking distance, Sable Island Tours. And I bet you it's probably that page where we were talking about before. So Sable Island Tours photo. We're sitting in 5th position, which is great. It's just below the search results. I recommend you run like a manual search of these. So I just plop this into Google. I'm using Chrome, so I can do it from the address bar there and take a look. Now, it's going to differ slightly. Now, I have this keyword surfer tool added as well, so we can get an idea how many monthly searches there are. In the US, there's 30. Let's switch this over to Canada just to see if there's any differences in that. 320. A lot more people in Canada know about Sable Island than the US, it looks like, or want to take a tour. We're looking down here. We're seeing, 6 ways to visit Sable Island article, 3 ways to get, and there's picture perfect tour. We're seeing it here in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th position. So it's pretty accurate to what Search Console is telling us. And we've got Sable Island Tours. We got to look at these top results and figure out why people would be more likely to click on these, and tweak your meta description, your data to try to increase this click-through rate. And it's less about the keywords now because you got all those signals there. You've got everything you need. It's about how do you draw people in. I would still keep that keyword in there because you don't want to lose a position. But look at like 6 ways to visit Sable Island in 2018. Friends of Sable Island. There could be an article. Maybe you can create, 7 ways to visit Sable Island. And you can highlight that one of those is your actual tour offering. I wouldn't put yourself first because it looks a little bit spammy, but a good opportunity there to create some content. And then these people also ask section right here. You can find how much does it cost to go on Sable Island? What's answering that question? CBC's answering that question. Now it's going to be a little bit hard to go after them, but maybe you can add this as a question on your tour page. Now I haven't visited the tour page, but let's open it up and just take a look here. So to answer this question, how much does it cost to go to Sable Island? We're just going to go on here and so it's got some great information in here. But if you wanted to specifically answer this, I would say, look, right above this content right here, highlight that question in a heading right above it, and then have your answer right below. And you're going to have a higher likelihood of getting ranked up into this spot here. And that's a signal that you're a stronger contender for this keyword. So you're creating supporting content to strengthen the signal of the other, of your broader term. Now you can also take this phrase, we're going to run it through SERPSIM just to find out if it has any volume. But we're going to take the question mark off because people don't ever write the question mark when they ask questions in Google, even though people also ask, oh, it does that. I never write a question mark when I ask a question. The how, what, when at the beginning just defines it as a question. So you may not get the same amount. So it's got no it's got no search volume in Canada. And I'm assuming since we didn't have as much traffic in the US that it's not going to have it as well, but we can always double check that. So that's when I would create this as a secondary piece of information on that main page that was ranking. And that's going to help strengthen that position. And I would go through all these questions and try to determine if you can answer them. I mean, don't stretch it. You want it to be still user-friendly and useful for people.
Michael, do you have to phrase it exactly how it says people also ask?
Not exactly. Google's got a lot of natural language processing updates. In fact, like they did a massive one in January, and it used to be exact phrase was great. If it still says the exact question, or if it still gets the same subject matter across, but like the question's a little bit different, or like people don't ask questions with proper grammar a lot in search results. So you want it to read like a human wrote it. You don't want it to read like an algorithm wrote it, but you want it to be as close to it as you can do it. But definitely worthwhile to consider how people are asking and what the proper grammar of that question could be. Any other questions about this?
We had a question, what is considered a good average CTR?
It would depend on your position. I wouldn't get hung up on that. It's something that I would monitor to see if it's dropping. I would say if you've got first position, you should have a pretty high click-through rate. But especially if you answer the question really well, if you're getting a result that's more like an image result, you're going to have a lot more people competing because you're going to have that carousel result. So there's no real like you have to have X. You just want to pay attention to it.
We had a question, another follow-up. They're also a bed and breakfast, and they're constantly competing with OTAs, online travel agents, to get their website first. How do I beat them is their question.
Your Google My Business is your friend there. They can't have that location. So that gets you in that local 3-pack as well. It is a challenge because they've got all the power behind them. They're a giant aggregator. The hotels.com, the bookings.com, but look at their peripheral content because you can't beat them out on that as well. Sometimes they'll do this really algorithmically. So they're looking for questions that are being asked that have low competition but have high volume. Now, I'm not seeing in here specifically that you can see what kind of volume you're getting from the search result, or sorry, you can see what you're getting from a volume, but you can't necessarily see competition, which is kind of tougher to do. To see competition, you can use AdWords, but it gets a little convoluted. And then there's other tools like Ahrefs, Moz, that cost roughly about $100 a month. But I would look for what questions these places are asking that you can answer better and create content around that. And when you create this content too, this outside content that's not on the page, make sure you link back to that key page that you're trying to drive the traffic to, that key converter that you want.
Perfect. That's all the Q&A. So that's all we have right now.
Great. All right. I'm going to jump right back into it. So this is the tool Keyword Surfer. Been using it for a little while here. Quite like it. It's a replacement for Keywords Everywhere, which was something I used to tote all the time, but it's now a paid model. And I appreciate that everyone's got tighter budgets these days. So I'm trying to give you as much free tools as you can use. And then when you get it to a certain level, you may want to take it up to that next level. So we've got, new content ideas. We dug into this by using that people also asked, and that's the way I would recommend it. Build on what you're already doing or what you've already got the signals for. Don't try to, it's going to be a lot easier battle than trying to build off something from the ground up. Supporting your content calendar with historic trends. This is really helpful because social media can really support your SEO efforts. If you're pushing a lot on social media and people are seeing your content on social media, there's a higher likelihood that they're gonna, for one, they could share it from outside of social media, which would consider it would be a backlink, which increases your authority and it requires no outreach other than what you're doing from a social media community standpoint. Then as well, if people are seeing this search all the time, they're going to search outside of Facebook. I see stuff all the time. I see the ads all the time, or I've been going through this. Everyone's talking about this subject. Okay, now I'm gonna search it in search results. So you can use a tool called Google Trends, which I've been using quite a lot since COVID happened, because the way people are searching has changed drastically because our lives have drastically changed. And what's coming up, what I'm really interested in is is a little bit different than what it was before. I'm really curious about how I can grow my own vegetables. I wasn't that curious about that last year. I was more concerned about like, what can I do at the cottage this summer? So what it does is helps you determine the best time to post or boost a post. What I recommend is when you're using Google Trends, you can enter your search term into the trends and see when there's historic spikes. Now, you got to consider COVID as well, but you can also see how people have been searching the last little bit and what has changed. I've noticed it's not related to tourism, but specifically, there's been a massive spike in people looking up sanitation services because we didn't have to worry about that before, not to the level that we used to. And people are really concerned about that right now. So there's been a massive spike in that. And when you go and look at something like a search volume tool, like what we were showing with SEO Surfer, you're not going to see that historic information because you're not going to see that volume from the previous months because it wasn't as important in February. Now, I ran Nova Scotia through, and you can also add a tourism element to it, or excuse me, travel. So you're not just looking at people that are curious about things about Nova Scotia, but you can also see, you can add it to the lens. So you add that lens of adding travel to it, then you can find out how many people in this, and you break it down. So right now I'm looking at US and how many searches are done, or what the trends are, not how many, what the trend is for search. So this is a score out of 100. It's the popularity over time. You'll see historically things start to pick up around the summer and then they drop off, pick up, drop off. Now this is 2020. It's a weird one. Things dropped off a little early. We all know what that spike's from. We won't go into that. And things have dropped off a little bit more. Now this is the US. We got a closed border. People might be still interested in Nova Scotia. And like when you create content, think about facilitating people's desire to travel without traveling. Like what can they get from just talking to you, or what can they learn, excuse me, from your website to support what you want to sell them down the road, or what you want them to do down the road. You'll see, we see a similar trend in Canada because people aren't traveling. We're not getting a lot of people from New Brunswick going to come into Nova Scotia this year. But what I have noticed is there's been a spike in actually Nova Scotia and people starting to spike to travel. Now this is just the beginning. Oops, excuse me. This is just the beginning of the spring-ish time. We haven't got into full summer, but we're pretty we're performing a little bit better than we did the previous years. And so this is a great signal. Like this is what we need to cater to, I think, for this summer. And what the trends I've been seeing is, how do we get more Nova Scotians to travel? I know myself, my wife and I have been planning vacations around like when these restrictions are a little bit looser and lifted a little bit more. What can I do around Nova Scotia? What can I see locally? How can I explore this place? There's so many great things for Nova Scotia to offer. So that's something to consider. So I'm going to just drop into trends here. And and I also wanted to mention that Google has, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, but this is specifically to the coronavirus search trends. It's geared towards the US, but it's very useful as well to get some more additional information about what's kind of spiking and what kind of things people are searching specifically, because we don't have that, we've never lived through this before. So it's really hard to spot the trends, and they're trying their best to collect this information. But if you don't want that big scary picture that the coronavirus there, we can always dig in a little bit more with Google Trends, the overall site. Now I'm going to just we're going to use Jordy's example here. So we're going to go photography tours. Now I'm going to leave off, can't spell photography to save my life here. But I'm gonna leave off the geo modifier, and the geo modifier would be Nova Scotia or Sable Island, the location, because we can drill down this information, because people don't, if you're searching for something in your general region, you don't have to add that geo modifier because Google knows where you're at. So right now we're looking at the US. We can change this categories. We can change it into travel, for example. We're getting slightly different information. It's kind of dropped off for April. And we can also break this down. So we're looking at the US right now. We can break it down to worldwide. A little bit more trend. Looks like this dotted line, it's just they don't have complete information. So they're making an assumption, take it for what it is. But we're seeing a little bit of interest in here. And we can even break it down. We can get into Nova Scotia. Now, when you get into these more granular terms, it can get a little frustrating because sometimes it's not going to bring up the information that you want. But if I was going to look up, let's say, hotel, and we're still looking at travel, now for Nova Scotia, we're getting a little bit more granular information. And I believe it will do city for like bigger cities like Toronto. Maybe not. Okay, sorry, it'll definitely do down to the province level. I have seen US cities in there, so you can get to like New York or like San Francisco if you're really curious about how that's doing. But yeah, that's how I recommend digging into this stuff. So we're gonna go back to that photography tour term, and we're gonna just take a little bit more look at, we're gonna photography. Let's take it back to Canada. Actually, let's keep it, let's see, here we go, Canada. So we got a little bit of information here. Now you can dig into which provinces are driving the most. And you can get this down. In the States, you can break this down by, it's actually allowing us to do some city here, but we're not, it's a little too granular. So sub-region, we can see province here. You can get related terms. So if you get a little bit more of a broader term, like we were gonna look up, let's say tours, and we're still drilling this down to travel specific, then we're gonna see related topics. Now, it's a computer, it's an algorithm. It doesn't have the opportunity to like completely break this down. So Dude Perfect Comedy Group, I don't know what they are, but I don't think this is gonna have anything to do with anybody's business, but virtual reality tour, tour as a topic. You'll see it's rising. It's plus 450%, plus 400. So if there's a way you can offer a virtual tour or something online that people can enjoy, you may not be able to convert those people like a hard conversion where they pay for your tour, but you can definitely get them into some sort of newsletter or some sort of topic where you can keep them up to date. And when you're ready to offer that service and they're able to travel, then you can reach out to them there and you're top of mind. Related queries give you a little idea of what other terms people are searching. So you kind of break this out and get a little bit more involved. And then you can run any of these terms through once you have that SEO surfer in place to find out what ones have volume. Any questions about Google Trends?
So now would be the time if you have any questions on Google Trends. We don't have anything yet. It's very great information though. Thank you for taking a peek behind the scenes beforehand. No questions yet.
Oh, so the whole point of this was to tell you, how does this inform your content calendar? So you'll see when there's spikes, you want to be slightly ahead of that curve. So when you're creating your content calendar for your social media, review this information. It exports to a Google Sheet really quickly. You can color code it to find out which ones have the biggest spikes, and then you'll get this date range. And then you can just filter that down and plop this into your content calendar, and you'll know exactly when when you should post. And this helps you kind of stay ahead of the curve. So when people are gonna, like, we're seeing very historic trends here. The summer, more people want to travel. That's your time to get people into that pipe is the spring, right? So, and when these spikes happen, so like it looks like there's a bit of a spike, I'm gonna say that's probably around August. Maybe you want to do that secondary push around July where you're re-pushing this content and getting people more engaged. So you post this on social media, it helps you garner backlinks and outside influencers from social media, and it just keeps you top of mind.
Okay, thank you. So here's a question we had from Bill Wallace. How many keyword strings can you safely focus on a page? 2 to 3, considering all the other SEO elements to assist with the keyboard strength before it gets diluted?
I would go for 1 or 2 main focus keywords and then pay attention to what happens in Search Console. So go back into Search Console and see what other keywords you start ranking for. You don't want to have it like the old days. It was like keyword stuffy. It was like the old joke is the SEO walked into a bars, comma, pub, comma, tavern, comma. Like, you don't need to define like that now. Google has gotten smart enough. The algorithms are definitely smart enough to associate these keywords and define the variance. So just focus on 1, maybe 2. Maybe look for a longer tail keyword, or not a longer tail keyword, a keyword that's got a little bit more, has more keywords in it. And then, but has like that first keyword that you're trying to go for at the beginning. So you have a stronger chance of getting for that like 4-word keyword, but you've got that, that main broader keyword that might be a little bit more competitive in there as well.
Okay, thanks, Michael. We had a question, and it's from Jeannie Dory, and it's review how to find this so I can check. So I think people may just want to just know how to get kind of to this search result again. So is there any way you could go back out and go back and just to quickly kind of remind them? And of course, this is recorded, so you can review back again, but can't hurt, I suppose.
Into a search result or into Google Search Console?
Sure. So I don't know. So it was kind of when you had the Nova Scotia results up.
Oh, and here, Google Trends.
Yeah. Google Trends.
Just search Google Trends. They love to give priority to their own internal tools. And it's, I think it's, trends.google.com.
Perfect.
Yeah, and you can drill down the information from there. And you can also compare keywords as well if you want to get in. I think it'll do up to 5. And if you want to compare weigh words against each other, specifically now where there's been shifts in how people search and what they search for.
Perfect. This is starting to open up some questions. So a follow-up to that would be, can you show us what the content calendar looks like?
I don't have one that I could share, unfortunately.
Do you have a website or a service provider that offers those?
I would just, what I generally use is a spreadsheet.
Okay.
Everything I have is client protected right now. Like I can't just load one up. I would show you mine, but it's horribly out of date. But you can use a spreadsheet. I think you guys went over that in the social media webinar, I believe. I recommend going back and checking that one to see how one looks. And then I would add a column in that spreadsheet. Generally, they have like, what URL you want, what keyword you're going after, what URL. Then you can plug in trends data to find out, when are the spikes.
Okay.
And then schedule it like that. Like when's our initial launch? When's our boost? Or when are our boosts? Excuse me.
Okay. And are there any programs that automate that for you online?
There are. I think HubSpot actually has a great content calendar, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, HubSpot content calendar. Yeah, there's a handful of them that automate it. From a social media standpoint, if you're using any sort of tool to kind of push and boost stuff, I haven't come across one that uses trends data to help you automate it, but that doesn't mean it's not out there. If everybody wants to create one, I'd love to talk to you.
Yeah. So we have a question, focus on 1 to 2 keywords. One classic example, please.
So let's say we're going for photography tours. I would focus so this would be your first keyword. And then, so we got 90 monthly searches in Canada. And then I would add Nova Scotia to the end. So no search volume, but it's definitely defining that geo space. And that could be, there might be some variance on there as well. We could look at the US to see if that breaks it out. So that's kind of the way I think about that when you're trying to do 1 or 2. I wouldn't go like photography tours, because it just doesn't read like a human wrote it. And it's going to jar people when they go to click through. And the algorithm's smart enough to pick up that it's a photography tour place. They don't need to know that you can also take photos. It's not just photography. It's been evolving for a long time, and it's getting really intelligent at this.
Perfect. That's all the questions we have at this time.
Cool. You mind if I do my little recap and my talk about how you guys can learn a little bit more?
Sure.
And I'll pass it back to you, Nick. So yeah, we want to use the search results to keep our clients informed, especially now. If they're searching about you, you have real estate there that's available to you, and you can influence it. And dig through your search console to find out what keywords are driving traffic and optimize for those keywords. Try to put that keyword as close to the front of the title as possible if it makes sense, but ultimately right for a human. That's the key thing right now with SEO. The scariest thing about searching for SEO is there's tons of content out there. It's super saturated, but a lot of it's out of date because it's constantly evolving. And support your content calendar with historic trends. So look at Google Trends when you're determining when you want to launch and boost your content through social media, because it's just going to help support this organic campaign that you're aiming towards. And so I also host an SEO brunch. The next one's May 25th. It's free to register, and it's a mishmash of people. I'm there. I'm open to any questions. We have half an hour for just open questions. We have a presenter as well. our presenter this time around is going to provide basic insights with Google Analytics, how to pull that kind of information. And as well, we do a 10-minute audit, which is exclusive to Digital Nova Scotia members at this point. We go through, it takes half an hour. I say 10-minute audit because that's my hopes, but with all the questions, it usually turns into 30 minutes. But we go through a site, and it's great to see what we're picking out from a site live to give you a little bit of idea of how to go through it. It's hosted on Zoom, and you can learn more at seobrunch.com. And if anybody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, that's you can scan that QR code. You can search me too. I'm pretty high up for Michael MacMillan. There's a guy who runs a Alliance Atlantis that outranks me sometimes, but yeah, just don't click on him. If he looks in his 60s or 70s, it's not me. I'll pass it back.
So that's great. So Michael, you can actually see the chat, and somebody had had an idea in chat. It's a bit of a longer description and probably something I'd want you to read first. It's kind of how they present their content calendar. So while I ask anyone else if they have any questions and answers, maybe can you see that?
Yeah. I'm gonna load it up
So okay, so if you want to read it out, then you can kind of let everybody know.
So I use my own template built off of this for content calendar, not automated, but I find it easier than a spreadsheet. Okay, that looks like, it looks a lot like other ticketing systems I've seen, and I think that's great. So yeah, Trello is one that you can use like this. This one is called Airtable. Cool. Yeah, I'd highly recommend it.
Okay, so that's great. I mean, and we'll share that out as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Duncan, so much for that example.
Does anybody else have any questions for Michael around the Q&A? Just give me 1 sec here. We'll just wait 1 sec, Michael, to see if there's any questions.
Sure.
Perfect. I don't see any questions there, Michael. So thank you so much for that overview. It was wonderful. There's lots of great information. I think it's going to be important for everyone to know, oh, we have a Q&A coming in. I think it's important for everyone to know that this is recorded and we can, at any time, you can go back and review it. Oh, Lindsay just said thanks for everything. So that's always nice. So I'm just going to share my screen. Thanks, Michael.
No problem. Thanks so much for having me.
So as Michael said, we have our upcoming webinar. He has an upcoming SEO brunch. It's Monday, May 25th, 11:30 to 1, free for anyone to join. The link is there, and it should be a really exciting opportunity if you want to have any extra questions for Michael to find out a little bit more about SEO. Our next webinar is actually tomorrow, and it would be with Eva Gooch from STEM Consulting, sales planning for COVID-19 recovery. So that's, of course, going to be an important part of your strategy as you move through. That's at 10 a.m. tomorrow. And we also have next week's webinar coming up with M5 Marketing and Communication. That's going to be with Jonathan Duke, VP of Marketing and Innovation. And it's going to be talking about resetting your marketing strategy, using this time to reflect on your business and tackle some strategies. They're going to give you 6 things to work on to come out swinging when you're able to reopen. So that should be a really exciting webinar next Thursday, May 28th at 10 a.m. with M5 Marketing and Communications. So thank you so much for joining us today. I didn't mention it first, but we do have a really great resource for around COVID-19. It's at tourismns.ca/coronavirus. Our website is tourismns.ca. You can follow us on LinkedIn, on Twitter. I really would recommend you sign up for our newsletter. It's where we talk about any new programs or anything we may have. We also have our direct email address. You can reach us at tnsbusiness@novascotia.ca. I'm just going to see, I just saw I had a Q&A pop up. I'm not sure if it was from Michael. Yep, somebody's asked us to send a link in the follow-up email to the content calendar stuff we discussed. So of course, we'll send the email with all sorts of really great information. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it and hope to see you on tomorrow's webinar. Have a great day.